The tale continues. Last time, an impossible plan was set into motion. Now, the final hours of an empire begin. Here's Sterling to finish the story.
By dawn, the impossible was becoming real. Mehmed's ships were beginning to move, not through water, but over solid ground. Thousands of oxen and hundreds of men hauled the vessels up wooden rails greased with animal fat and tallow. One by one, warships crested the hills north of the city, dragged like siege engines toward the Golden Horn. By morning, some 70 Ottoman ships floated inside the harbor, launched directly into water the chain was never meant to guard. Byzantine defenders woke to find their supposedly secure northern flank suddenly exposed to attack from the sea. Panic spread through the city. The one line of defense they had trusted completely had simply been walked around. Constantine's soldiers, already stretched thin along the land walls, now had to guard miles of harbor coastline too. Every reserve, every spare man, was pulled from elsewhere to patrol a shoreline that had never needed defending before. Mehmed pressed his advantage. Bombardment of the land walls resumed with renewed intensity, day and night without pause. The defenders held, but exhaustion was setting in. Weeks of fighting had worn every soldier down to the bone. Food supplies dwindled further. Sleep became a luxury few could afford, as the siege dragged past its 7th week. Still, Constantine refused every offer of surrender, choosing to stand with his people rather than flee to safety. Mehmed, meanwhile, prepared for a final, overwhelming assault, gathering every soldier he commanded for one last push. The stage was set for the 29th of May, 1453, a date that would end an empire. In the hours before dawn, Ottoman forces began their assault, using every soldier and every weapon at their disposal. Wave after wave of irregular troops surged toward the walls first, meant to exhaust the defenders before the real assault began. Byzantine and Genoese soldiers cut them down by the hundreds, holding the breaches through sheer desperate will. Next came Mehmed's Anatolian regiments, better trained and better armed, throwing themselves against the battered fortifications. Still the wall held, propped up by rubble, timber, and the exhausted bodies of men who refused to fall back. Finally, Mehmed unleashed his elite Janissary Corps, the finest soldiers in the entire Ottoman army. Disciplined, relentless, and seemingly endless, the Janissaries advanced in perfect formation toward the weakened defenses. Giovanni Giustiniani, commanding the defense at the critical civil gate, fought at the very front of the line. Then, in the chaos of close combat, Giustiniani was struck by a crossbow bolt or gunshot, severely wounded. His soldiers, desperate to save him, carried their commander from the wall toward the ships in the harbor. Seeing their leader fall and be carried away, the Genoese defenders began to waver, then to retreat. Lord, 1880. It was the single crack the Ottoman army needed after 53 days of being denied one. Nearby, at a small postern gate called the Kirkoporta, defenders had left the door carelessly unlocked and unguarded. Ottoman soldiers discovered it open, slipped through in small numbers, and began climbing the walls from behind. Within minutes, Ottoman banners were rising over towers that had never once fallen to a foreign army. Panic spread through the defenders as they realized enemy soldiers were now inside the city walls itself. Emperor Constantine XI, seeing the walls compromised beyond saving, rode toward the fighting at the breach. Witnesses say he tore off his imperial regalia so no one could target him, becoming just another soldier. He is said to have shouted that the city was falling, and he would not survive to see it. Constantine then vanished into the chaos of the final fighting, and was never seen alive again by history. His body was never conclusively identified among the dead, and his final fate remains a mystery to this day. The last Roman emperor, heir to a title over 1,000 years old, simply disappeared into battle. By midday, Ottoman forces had broken through completely, pouring into the streets of Constantinople from every direction. Soldiers looted homes, churches, and shops, claiming spoils promised to them after such a brutal, costly siege. Thousands of citizens sought shelter inside Hagia Sophia, believing its sacred walls would somehow protect them from harm. It did not. Ottoman soldiers broke through its doors as well, and the ancient cathedral fell like everything else. Sultan Mehmed II rode into the city that afternoon, greeted by scenes of chaos and devastation. He ordered the looting stopped and rode directly to Hagia Sophia, the greatest church in the Christian world. Standing beneath its massive dome, the 21-year-old Sultan declared the building would become a mosque, effective immediately. For 900 years, Hagia Sophia had been the heart of Eastern Christianity. Now, its purpose changed forever. Mehmed made Constantinople his new capital, renaming it in time, though many would simply call it Istanbul. The city would remain the seat of Ottoman power for nearly 470 years afterward. In Western Europe, news of the fall arrived as a catastrophe, the end of the last living link to ancient Rome. Historians still debate whether 1453 marks the symbolic end of the Middle Ages themselves. Greek scholars fled the fallen city carrying classical manuscripts westward, feeding directly into Italy's growing Renaissance. Trade routes disrupted by new Ottoman control pushed European powers to search for entirely new paths to Asia. That search for new routes would eventually lead men like Columbus to sail west instead of east. An empire founded by Constantine the Great in the year 330 ended with Constantine XI, 11 centuries later. Two emperors, separated by more than 1,000 years, bound together by nothing but a shared name and a doomed city. Constantinople did not simply fall that day in May. An entire age of the ancient world fell with it.
And so, the tale of Constantinople comes to an end. If you'd like to see more tales from the past, be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you on the next adventure.